In this video, we are going to clarify what interview questions are designed to do in qualitative research and what they are not designed to do. When this distinction is unclear, interviews become abstract, scattered, or shallow. When it is clear, interviews become focused, humane, and analytically powerful. Interview questions sit between design and data. They are shaped by your research question, but they are not research questions. They are shaped by theory, but they are not theory statements. They are shaped by your qualitative approach, but they are not methodological justifications. A research question guides the study. It names the phenomenon and the analytic purpose. An interview question guides a person into memory. It invites recall of a moment, a sequence, a decision, or a feeling. If your research question asks, how do first-generation college students experience academic advising during their first year, that question frames the inquiry. It does not automatically become a good interview question. A common mistake is to ask, how do you experience academic advising during your first year? It mirrors the research question, but it asks the participant to summarize an entire year in one response. Let's analyze why that fails. It is abstract. It has no time anchor. It requires synthesis before recall. It assumes participants can compress complex experiences into general explanation. Revision begins by narrowing scope. Version 1. Tell me about your advising experiences during your first year. It sounds conversational, but it still invites summary across time. Revision continues. Version 2. Thinking about your first semester, can you tell me about a specific advising meeting that stands out to you? What happened during that meeting? Now the participant has a clear entry point. The research intent did not change. The topic did not change. What changed was access. Interview questions improve when they move from abstraction to entry. Interview questions are invitations into experience. They help participants return to something they lived through. Meaning grows from description. It does not need to be demanded prematurely. Consider another near miss. Tell me about your advising experience. This sounds open and informal, but it still spans undefined time and invites summary rather than moment-based recall. A stronger version might be, can you tell me about one advising interaction you remember clearly? What happened in that interaction? That small revision lowers cognitive load and narrows scope. Interview questions are not opinion polls. What do you think about advising produces stance? Tell me about a time you met with an advisor produces lived data. Interview questions are not theoretical tests. If your study is phenomenological, you may ask, what was that advising meeting like for you? If your study is grounded theory, you may ask, when you realized you needed advising, what did you do first? What happened next? If your study is narrative, you may ask, tell me the story of your advising experiences across your first year. The phenomenon remains constant. The listening changes. Interview questions are not double-barreled. How did advising affect your confidence and decision-making and sense of belonging? Increases cognitive load and splits attention. Let's conduct a full autopsy of this question. How has advising impacted your confidence and decision-making during college? It spans too much time. It stacks constructs. It uses abstract language. It lacks a starting point. Revision begins with narrowing time. During your first year, how did advising affect your confidence? Better, but still explanation-focused. Revision continues. During your first year, can you tell me about a time you met with an advisor and noticed a shift in how confident you felt? What happened during that interaction? Now the participant can enter a lived moment before interpreting it. Interview questions are not leading. Did that make you feel unsupported because your advisor did not understand first-generation students? Embeds explanation. A neutral revision is, how did that interaction feel for you? Or, what do you think contributed to that feeling? Interview questions are not interrogations. Why didn't you speak up? Implies blame. What was going through your mind at that moment? Invites reflection without accusation. Tone matters as much as wording. Even a neutral question like "How did that feel?" can become leading if asked with raised eyebrows, a skeptical pause, or emphasis on certain words. Ethical interviewing requires neutral tone, steady pacing, and space for silence. Interview questions are not probes. Main questions open topics. Probes deepen within the same topic. Consider this sequence. Main question: tell me about a time advising felt challenging. Participant: it was confusing. Probe: what was confusing about it? Participant: I didn't understand the course requirements. Probe: what happened next? Depth increases without changing topics. Here is a longer transcript showing shallow data transformed through probing. Main question: tell me about a time advising felt challenging. Participant: it was frustrating. Interviewer: what made it frustrating? Participant: I didn't know what classes to take. Interviewer: can you walk me through that meeting step by step? Participant: I went in thinking I would register for biology, but the advisor said I needed prerequisites. I felt embarrassed because I thought I had planned well. Interviewer: what was going through your mind at that moment? Participant: I started questioning whether I understood college expectations at all. Notice how probing produced sequence, emotion, and meaning that were not present initially. This illustrates the difference between surface description and thick description. Surface description names a feeling. Thick description situates that feeling in sequence, context, and internal dialogue. Interview questions are not where analysis happens. During the interview, you are inviting description, sequence, and felt response. Cross-case interpretation happens later during coding and synthesis. There is also a natural layering inside interviews. Early questions often invite descriptive recall. Later questions invite reflection. For example, what happened during that meeting? Followed by looking back now, how do you understand that experience? Sequencing protects depth. Interview questions must map to your subquestions. For example, research question: how do first-generation students experience advising? Subquestion 1. How do advising interactions shape academic decisions? Subquestion 2. How do advising interactions shape confidence? Aligned interview questions might include: after that meeting, what decisions did you make? And during that meeting, how did you feel about your ability to navigate your program? Each question serves a defined analytic need. This mapping should be visible. Research question leads to subquestions. Subquestions lead to interview domains. Interview domains produce main questions. Main questions are deepened through probes. When alignment is visible, rigor increases. Interview questions are not static. They improve through piloting and revision. Example of real-time revision. Question: how do you experience advising? Participant: I'm not sure what you mean. Revision: let me ask that differently. Can you tell me about a specific advising meeting and what happened during it? Revision is refinement, not weakness. Interview questions are not cognitively overwhelming. Long layered phrasing increases processing load. For example, how did advising influence your confidence, planning strategies, and academic persistence over time? Can be divided into separate focus questions asked at different points in the interview. Interview questions are not emotionally reckless. Sensitive topics require pacing. Begin with less intense recall before moving toward deeper interpretation or emotionally charged experiences. If a participant becomes distressed, the interviewer does not push for detail. The interviewer may say, "We can pause for a moment. Would you like to continue describing that experience, or would you prefer to move to a different question?" Ethical containment is part of good interviewing. Interview questions differ across qualitative approaches. Below is a short mini-guide for the same phenomenon. Phenomenology Guide Sample. What was that advising meeting like for you? What stands out most vividly from that interaction? How did that moment feel internally? How did you make sense of that experience afterward? Grounded theory guide sample. When you realized you needed advising, what did you do first? What happened next? What factors influenced your decision to follow that advice? Over time, how did your approach to advising change? Narrative guide sample. Tell me the story of your advising experiences across your first year. Where does that story begin? What were the turning points? How would you describe how that chapter ended? Now consider a full week interview guide example. How do you experience advising? How has advising impacted your confidence and decisions? Do you think advising supports first-generation students effectively? Why didn't you speak up when confused? What improvements should the university make? This guide is abstract, evaluative, leading, and policy-oriented. Now consider a revised version. Thinking about your first semester, can you tell me about a specific advising meeting you remember clearly? What happened? During that meeting, how did you feel about your ability to navigate your academic path? After that meeting, what decisions did you make? Can you describe another advising interaction that felt different from the first? Looking back, how would you describe your overall advising journey during your first year? Strong interviewing also recognizes that not every participant will respond richly to every question. Variability is normal. Silence, brevity, or hesitation are not failures. They are part of the interaction and may require gentle probing or reframing. It is also possible to overprobe, repeating why, or pressing for detail beyond what a participant is comfortable sharing can shut down conversation. Probing should deepen meaning, not exhaust participants. Before finalizing your guide, use this diagnostic checklist. Can each main question be answered with a specific moment? Does each question ask for one thing? Is the language concrete and everyday? Is there a time anchor? Would clarification likely be needed? Does the question align with a sub-question? Does it avoid leading tone and embedded interpretation? Does it respect pacing and emotional safety? Interview questions are not casual conversation, even though they may sound simple. They are intentionally designed, ethically delivered, and methodologically aligned. When you understand what interview questions are, you design for clarity, depth, sequencing, and alignment. When you understand what interview questions are not, you stop overloading them with abstraction, stacking constructs, embedding assumptions, forcing interpretation prematurely, or mistaking complexity for rigor. Research questions guide the study. Interview questions invite experience. Keeping that distinction clear strengthens rigor, protects participants, and produces data capable of supporting meaningful qualitative analysis.